Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to move on and work on getting that jacking point into the rocker here. So what I've come up with, moving right along, it's Saturday. As you know, I posted in the group, I've got Saturday all day to mess around with the car. So we'll see how much we can get done. You know, obviously this is all kind of fairly new to me, but we'll try and move along. I've been planning a lot of the approach here, so let's see what we come up with. I made this form just out of a 4x6 piece of pressure treated I had lying around. Because the jacking point, obviously the outside area here on this jacking point tells me the profile of the inner rocker, even with the radius of the inner rocker here and here. And so I cut this down on the table saw to the correct width, and then this radius I got from these edges on the jacking point. I don't know whether you can see that, but I just routed the radius along here, sanded it a bit, and so this is what I'm going to try and bend the 16 gauge over. This doesn't have to be particularly hard, I just want to copy that radius. I'll clamp it in place with this piece of angle on here, and let's see how we get on. Like I say, I'm going to skip through a lot of the woodwork stuff, because you get the idea, just building forms out of wood, what you've got lying around. So let's get this clamped off and see if I can bend that piece of 16 gauge that I cut. So. Okay, so first order of business, before I get into the outer rocker area out here, is to get this jacking point in position. Now, let's see. Okay, so obviously cut this access hole, just a smaller hole than I'm eventually going to cut, but just to get access and see what's going on here. I cut back part of the floor pan, and I'm actually going to go back further because of being able to access this panel to cut a larger section out of there. Now, obviously the jacking point has to be located in the exact right position to correspond with the upper structure beam, you know, the main beam that sits on the outside, and come out the hole in the correct position. So, you get the jacking point, hold on a second. Put one jacking point off to the, let me put this down. I put one jacking point out off to the left. Here, this is obviously not where this goes, but I'm using this to hold down this inner rocker to the correct position. Now, obviously the jacking point has to come out perfectly through this square hole here. So let me get back in the car and I'll show you what my plan is. Okay, so first order of business is to get my patch made. That's this 16 gauge, and I've shown you how what I've made it out of, just a 4x6. I'm going to replace about 10 inches. I'm going to come about to here, over to here, and on the downside there's a little hole there I want to incorporate to get rid of. Then we can locate the jacking point in there, but it has to be set in there, because if I go putting this in, I'm not going to be able to get it in. So there's an order of business here that I've got to bear in mind, otherwise I'll kind of weld the hole up and not be able to get the jacking point in, if you kind of get my drift. So first order of business is get this patch made up, dry fitted, make sure everything fits nice. Then we'll figure out the best order of doing the jacking point. So let's go down and see if I can bend that metal around my form. Okay, so what we've got here, if you could imagine, this is the inside where the floor pan is here. Okay, and I've got that dirty grey hole cut out here. I don't intend to cut on the top of the inner rocker too much. Right now the original metal comes down to around here, and what I'll probably try and do is keep a straight line just below this radius, but I am going to make my patch roll over here, and then I can cut the patch to fit, and then obviously the patch needs to roll over, and the jacking point will tell me, hold a minute, this way round I should say, the jacking point will tell me where the, if you can see, so the patch rolls over this and it comes to about here, just past this lip to about here, just before it touches the bottom of the tube here, and then that's when it lips down for the spot weld. So that's the important area that I've got to know where the bend is. If I go too short, obviously it won't reach the outer rocker. So first things first, I've got plenty of metal so I can cut back, and it gives me a little leverage. So what we've got to do is to get this metal, I'm going to try and bend this around there to about there, and then this will wrap around the rest. So let's see how we get on. We'll get this clamped. I'll measure everything, obviously. Now, this obviously can be set to the beginning of the radius because we want this to radius around. Might give it a little spare, just let's get it roughly on there, and then I'll clamp everything off. Okay, so I've set the clamp on. I haven't really tied it down yet. So I want this clamp edge here. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Make sure it's focused. So I want this edge. Oh, breakfast time. Hold on a minute. All right. Okay, just had breakfast. Right, I'm all set up. Wife's gone. We've got a whole day messing around, which is pretty cool. So anyway, as I was saying, I'm measuring, making sure that I'm sticking out from the, whoops, move that a minute. Sticking out from the angle line the same distance. That's number one. And that we're right at the beginning of that radius there. Okay, so this metal curves around. Now I've not done this before. Okay, we transfer to the vise now because the board was shifting on me. So that should do it. See, it's coming on. You see that? You can see that it's not quite at 90 there, but I think with a little bit of finesse on the vise here, I can just tap that down. Okay, so to get that little to roll over a little bit further and get past that spring back, I've put a piece of wood here to hold that profile so I don't damage that. Keeps the profile, and then I can push this edge, hopefully, a little further over. So let's see how this goes. Next thing to do is to bend it the other way on the other side. So we've got that bending system. Let me zoom out there. So, there you go. So, we've got that nice radius there. Look at that. Where is it? Focus there. Okay, so that looks like it's going to work. So now we've just got to replicate this radius, which is on the form. Okay, so with this next bend, what's fortunate now we've got that other bend, clamped a piece of metal there to cinch it this way to make sure it doesn't shift. And then we've got downward force, of course, so everything's tight, so we can start bending this guy. Get it started. Okay, so with a little bit of finagling, basically with trial and error, obviously you've got a few things going on. You want to make sure this radius is snug underneath here, so you keep that distance from these two radiuses correct. Then clamped in this way so that when you bend this, it doesn't bulge out the flat spot on this end. So it's going to be a bit noisy, but I think this is the best way to get the main radius, and then I can do that little trap wood again to send it the rest of the way. So let's get a rag so it kind of deadens the sound a bit, I think. Let's just put some tension on it. Okay, got an inner rocker coming on nicely. This is the jacking point. You can see in there, or if you can see in the light here, it's actually going in. We've just got to take this little gap up here by pushing this past the spring back point. But we're pretty good. Let me bring it to the edge so you can see it. There you go. You can see that? On camera. There we go. So I think you could see that pretty good. So we'll just push that one further over. Okay, to send this past, obviously I'm going to jam that piece of wood in there to send it past, but I can't use my original form because I need to lift this slightly, and obviously the form will restrict me. So I just got another piece of a 2x4, made the same radius on it, and then this is smaller, so it enables me to just knock that down a bit to get my slither of wood in here. Piece of wood in here, just to tap this, make sure that's seated against the radius all the way along. That's good. Now we can anchor it. And we can just tap that guy a little further over. Kind of striking this way. That looks pretty good actually. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Oops, this way around. There you go. In a rocker. Not bad, eh? What we got to establish now is the point. Let me see. Get this in here. The point where the rocker then comes this way for the pinch weld. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up to the car. I'll probably mark it with a bit of tape or something. Essentially it's just, if you can imagine, the straight point where it essentially touches that tube. Okay, hopefully you can see that. See where the... I think you can see my mark. Oh, you can see where the lip goes down to 90 degrees for that lip. Just before it, or just as it's touching the tube. So I've marked this one, and that I'll transfer it over to the one I'm making. Okay, back in the shop now. I took the marking off of the jack point from the ratio, the reference point from the flange here to the point where it dives down. Transferred it to a bit of tape with a pencil line. I just thought it'd be finer than any Sharpie line and stuff. So hopefully that now we can bend that down, and then obviously there's going to be a good amount of waste to cut off. But now this is the last bend, and we've done this before, so this should be pretty straightforward. Right, let's see what we got. Got a nice crisp 90 there, see? Lovely jubbly. Diamond. Remember, you got to watch the metal. So, that's not bad. Pretty good, eh? Pretty happy with that. Let me get it up the other end so you can see my mark. There you go, there's my mark. Down to the flange. Okay, got the patch up here and assessed where I've got a cut. I'll show you in a sec. The patch in. Let me show you. I've cut the patch down in length a little bit, just took a little length off. Like I say, similar principles to furniture, just save as much of the original as possible. Can't go wrong with that really, I guess. So I'm just cutting a little bit at a time till I get to good metal. There's a few complicated areas, so this is good. I'm not sure what to do, where to cut it here yet. I'm going to wait and decide on that. But I've cut my lip and everything fits nice. I cut the floor back just a little bit further so I can slip that patch in. Let me show you what I mean. I did a lot of this off camera because the darn tools are so blooming noisy. So hold on a minute. So you can see I cut a larger section of the floor away and decided where I'm going to put my patch. So where that big hole is obviously where the jack point goes, but this is my patch coming in. So that'll go just like, get it in now. Oh, man, a little bit of a struggle. So there you go. So obviously you've got this will contract down once I cut the metal out, but I'm going to shift it a little further that way. Jacking points around about here. Then I've got to decide where I'm going to cut this guy. I'm half thinking of cutting it just above this curve here so I can get the MIG welder in here. It might be a little easier to weld right there. See if you can see it there. Okay, so you can see just before it flattens out, maybe cut it there, and that'll be my scribe line. I can cut that out pretty easy, and then underneath and the side. So next step. Okay, we've had a few, whoops, there's my glove. Not dramas, but I mean little hiccups. I'll show you what I've got. So I've got the patch in, but when I lined it up for the width, from the more towards the back, towards the front, this is why you shouldn't assume anything. But it's a taper. It's actually the flange tapered. So by about ½ an inch over this, right towards the end, I checked my other 108, and sure enough, it goes from 3 inches to 2.5, just as it makes that kick up. So, luckily, because this is 16 gauge and it's like freaking ridiculously strong, I was able to flatten that flange out and then re-taper it. So you can see it tapers. So anyway, so I got it to fit with a reasonable gap all the way around so I can weld through. And so my plan is, this mark here is where the jacking point goes. I'm going to weld that sucker in now, clean all the paint off, put some weld through primer on, get that welded in there nice and strong so I can access here, here, here and here, and then once that goes in, then I can spot weld through from the top, and it's pretty darn good actually. I think with a little bit of hammering here and there, it goes in really well. So I'm going to set up for welding, and yeah, it's taken me a little longer than I thought. I mean, a few hours certainly to make this patch up, but you know, this is the monster part of it, you know, to get this jack point in exactly the right position. But I think we've cracked it. So anyway, let's get welding. Alright, first things first, I just put some weld through copper primer on this, on the edges of the jack point I'm going to weld in, and I'm going to tack weld along the edges, and then I'll spot weld it as well. So just like the factory, I think they had like 3 spot welds up here, 3 here, and about 5 along here. So I'll make sure that sucker ain't going anywhere. So right, that's setting up. I'm going to put some rust encapsulator inside the exit areas that I will cover up by putting this unit in, and let's kick the old welder on and get this welded up. Okay, we're in the next day now. Because of that little misstep, you know, the tapering, it kind of slowed me down a bit yesterday, and then I spent the rest of the afternoon, or rest of the afternoon, a little while tuning it, making sure this fit in snug and nice, and then welded my jack point in with my reference point where the center of the pipe goes. So if this fits in nice, I welded it, seam welded it all inside, treated it with copper primer, and I got good penetration. You can see the welds have penetrated in the back there and under the side there, and once I fit this in, I'll reference the point where these tabs are, and then spot weld through from inside the car. I'll drill little holes in the rocker inside and then spot weld in, and then that's locked in. Then I'll probably wait until it's on the car to trim this tapering piece off, you know, get that welded in and chop it when it's in. I do have for reference where this tab ties into the large box unit, and spot through into that, and then this is locked in there, then that's all done. At this end, there's a little bit of a gap, but I'm not worried too much, because a section of this, when it dives up and goes up, is going to be replaced anyway. So if this isn't too good here, it doesn't matter, because I'll just weld some new in here going this way. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. It took longer than I thought, but results have come out well. I'm glad I used the 16 gauge. It was a bit of a challenge, but it's working out, and I'm itching to get it welded in. So first things first, I'm going to drill these holes to reference that, make sure this is tuned in, mark these for spot welding, then get this sucker welded in. So okay, let's get to it. Okay, so I've got it set in now, ready for tack welding. As you can see, I've set up a series of little clamps here. This clamp is on the underside of the jack point, pushing in the upward direction to make sure the jack point is flat against this upper rocker. So that's important, because we want that really nice and flat against there. And I'll drill through and spot weld onto the top of that. And here, this little corner just needs a little tapping down and manipulating as I go. I'm just going to tack all of the very flush parts, and it's just going to be tack, tack, tack until we get it right. And because this is 16 gauge, I might be able to, I'll do a few tests, but might be able to run, you know, a short beads, because it's structurally very strong because of these creases and the jack point welded in there. I'm not going to get any warpage on this. Plus the main rocker is all supported. So anyway, we'll get to welding. I don't think I'm going to be filming the welding because it's too cramped in here, but I'll show you afterwards. All right. Well, it's all welded up. Everything went really well, actually. I'll show you in a sec. Because of the structural strength of 16 gauge and the bends in it and everything clamped in, I was able to concentrate in kind of one area at a time, because really physically getting up and down and moving around, it takes a lot out of you when you're in a confined space like that, you know. So I was able to do, you know, about 4 or 5 spots in one area, and I used an air line to cool the weld down. And I kept, my main problem really, to be honest with you, is not so much the welding, it's seeing the darn things. In actual fact, I stacked 2 pairs of glasses on top of each other, but you know, when you're in the confined space, the glasses start getting all moved all over the place, and you know, the biggest challenge was seeing what I was doing, but it came out really well. I had one tiny little blow through, but I was able to, you know, build up a weld and weld right over it. It went really good, so I'm really happy. It's solid as a rock now. Let me show you what I've done, and I'll show you a few other little things I kind of did. I don't know whether normally people do it, but it seemed to make sense to me. But anyway, here we go. So I ground everything up. Let me get in here. It's been awkward. Oh, it's an ant there. Okay, see? So, ground all this smooth. I really concentrated on making sure every time I spot welded, making darn sure everything was level, because obviously if it's not level and you go to grind, you'll grind either the original or your new patch too thin. So I just really took my time, took the patch in and out, and fiddled a lot to get that really tuned up, and I think it paid off. What else? So yeah, that was one thing, and spot welded it all round. This was the section I blew through a little bit, but I was able to build a weld up, and not a problem. Get my light on there so you can see. Hopefully you can see now. See this area. Let me hang there. This was another thing, getting a light in here. hold on a minute. I hung it from the glove box actually, like, and this don't like shutting itself off. If you can see that. No, that's rubbish. Hold on. Got another light here. Put that. There we go. So, see that big hole there? That is that has a little drainage plug in it, a little rubber grommet. I'm going to leave that because I'll use that to inject the oil sealer stuff into the rocker when I'm all done. And I may drill the occasional hole here and there and use a little plug to plug it up so I can pump a load of rust protectant. Anyway, so I don't know whether you can see, this is where the penetration is on the jack point, and then okay, back again, the battery's run out. Okay, so as I was saying, you can see the penetration of where the jack point got a good penetration weld to there, and then I spot welded on the top here in 4 places. I drilled a hole and spot welded it through, so that anchored really nice. I had a little trouble here. I didn't grind too much here because I think I was just slightly out of level, and I say I'd much rather it be more metal there than get too thin, but that was my only area. I started to come down here and come down here, and that's where I transferred underneath the car to weld up above. That was a little tricky because, you know, you're kind of cramped in here. That really, besides not being able to see a darn thing, the up and down was pretty tough, but I'm really happy the way it came out. It's solid as a rock, and I'm very glad I used 16 gauge, and I appreciate, I can't think of the viewer's name on YouTube, but he kind of pushed me to use 16 gauge. I'm so glad I did. The major hiccup I had making the patch yesterday was not taking consideration that it tapered towards the front, but it wasn't a big deal. I bent it flat again and re-bent it at the correct angle. So that's all in. The next thing obviously is to get this floor panel back in and spot welded all along. Compared to this patch, that's going to be a breeze. So that's that on the inside, looking good. Obviously I'm going to use a seam sealer on all of these seams, on all of the welds, on the outside as well, where this laps onto this box frame. I'll use a seam sealer, and then I'm going to treat the inside with rust inhibitor and then pour some of that oil stuff in there. So let's go on the outside. I've still got to trim this straight. I left that. I'll just trim that straight once I get everything in. This wasn't too bad. Let me get a light on again here. Let me get underneath. You can see. Oops. And it's cramped. You can see how cramped it was. Hopefully that is in focus. No, I put manual focus on. What a wally. Okay. Okay, so see, welded all down here, ground this up. Don't worry too much about that little gap there, because I'm going to replace this and then work my way up. So this is good here, but here I'm going to patch. I just wanted to get that solid. There's also some holes here, right here, but this is solid, so I'm going to patch in here next. At the other end here, this went in really good, smooth round, little lump there. I'll probably grind that down after I finish videoing. Just a little lump there, and a little one here. But generally, it's gone in really nice. Spot welded here. I kind of screwed up my spot welds here on these holes. They were a bit low, but I'm not worried about it. I'll fill those up with weld, and then when the other outer rocker comes in, I'll, trim everything, make it look nice. One thing I did do, and this is one of my things I kind of come up with while I was doing this, to make sure that I got all of the weld complete, was I put my light inside the rocker, and I could see little beads of light sticking through any holes. I did this inside as well, the car. I put a light source, strong light source, so I was able to pinpoint any little pinholes. Now obviously these don't have to be absolutely completely watertight, because we use a seam sealer, comes over, and you know, primed and then undercoated and all that good stuff. But anyway, so next thing to do, I think, in order, is to build out this area, then of course the outer rocker, which now I've kind of cut my teeth on the inner one. That's going to be a breeze, that one. Oh, and also this darn little bead here, this bead, which is a very sharp radius, that's going to be tricky. So that I'm going to put my old brain power to, and we'll sort that out. On this little hole here on the top, because this is hidden behind a splash plate, I will just probably lap a plate over that, clean all this area and lap a plate. This looks like it's been welded before, so this is all very solid here, but it's this bead is going to be a little tricky. So overall, I mean, we got the jack point in, we got the inner box in. It took quite a bit longer than I was expecting, but as I say, it took a little bit longer than I was expected, but I had a few visitors yesterday, kind of broke my train of thought. If you're inclined to do this kind of thing, it's a lot of fun. I got a lot of fun out of doing this, and simple tools. What did I bought a bit of metal, 4x8 sheet of 16 gauge, 65 bucks. Made me forms. I had a hammer, some clamps, some angle iron, bent that sucker over, and with a little thought, you know, able to make it up. Obviously the welder and stuff like that, and just a step-by-step approach, the copper primer, all that stuff I've learned from you guys. You know, David's Kai's 114, I believe, the model. Yeah, we chatted on YouTube, so there you go. And then the other gentleman about the 16 gauge. So it's all kind of helped me along. I really appreciate it. But what a laugh! I mean, it's a great sense of achievement when you do something like this yourself. And obviously you're saving money, but that's not the big priority here. Well, it kind of is, because I haven't got any money. But anyway, you get the idea. So that's it for this video. This is the 2 in the series, and hold on just a second. This video sure is going to be quite a long video anyway. So in the next video, I've saved this for the next one. In the first video, you know, we were bending a rocker, and we wanted to get that flange, wrap round flange at the end. So this was my form I made. I ended up cutting and using my piece of cardboard, actually, referenced my other 108 to get this angle correct. Chiseled out this, so we got that angle. I made a support plate which clamps on there to hold your piece really flat against this form while you're hammering over. It gets screwed in and clamps solid. So this is 18 gauge, by the way, right now. I experimented. I folded over too much material, but you can see I was able to fold it there. This is too wide. I don't need to do that wide. Get that clamped in tight and just gently knock it over. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do that with 16 gauge. I'm 50-50 on it. If I can't, what I can do is, let's supposing this is the 16 gauge, I'm just going to weld a flange on right on the corner. Make it, weld it, you know, shave it round. You never know. It'll probably work better like that anyway, and you're not putting too much stress on it. I'll give it a few test samples and see how we go. So I think that's all for today. Thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing the weekend with me. It's Sunday. Wife should be back soon, so I've got to kind of tidy up and get back to normal scheme of things. And I will see you in next video. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate everything, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.